What's up? I will wait for some folks to show up. Yes, I will. I will amuse myself in the meantime, in between time. We got one person. Okay. I hope it's not a family member trying to make me feel better about myself. But if it is, thank you for tuning in. Say who you are and comment what's happening this week. Let me know what's going on in your world. We're going to talk about a few things today. Uh, General Q&A. Had a ton of questions about the bus comp that I want to address because I think some folks are missing the mark in terms of understanding, how to use the unit. So let's see who tunes in. One person. Say who you are in the comments. Say hello. Okay. Hopefully most people are indoors in light of, you know, current situation. That's why I wanted to go live today to explain a few things that has happened this week with regards to this. Hey, John, what's up, my brother? How are you? Hopefully your week was better than mine. you know, um, had a couple of can't. I hope no, I have a couple. I had like about 4 cancellations this week. You're doing well. I'm glad that you are, man. Really, because this is crazy, crazy. This whole situation with this coronavirus and the one thing that I hope that everyone is doing is taking precautions because that is very, very important. Um, and more so, if you have to come in contact with people on a daily basis. So that's very, very important, and which I do. So glad you're doing well. Glad you're doing well. And we're going to cover a couple of things today. I want to answer quite a few questions that I've been having about the bus comp, what I do in downtime, because although my contracts weren't canceled, they were postponed. And, for understand, and I wasn't, and you get upset for a moment because you're counting on the money, but at the same time, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person who is doing the canceling. So I'm going to talk about what you do in downtime and general Q&A. So, John, tell me what you are working on right now. I am interested, if anything. Or general questions. Nope. Okay. Let's get into it. A couple of questions I had this week. I'm not working on. Okay, so tell me, what do you do in your downtime? Let's flip it then. If you're not, currently working on anything particularly, tell me what you do in your downtime. Because one thing I do believe is that even though everyone goes through these ebbs and flows of working, being busy, not busy, busy, not busy, that's the gig economy, if you will. What do you do to keep yourself occupied or to up your game, if you will, during your downtime? That is what I'm most interested in. Just share that in the comments. And anyone else who might be logging on shortly or during the playback. You want something right now? Okay. Okay, so let's get into and I'll get back work on my son's music. Okay, that's cool. That's excellent. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, you got to keep occupied. That's the single most important thing, especially if you are um if you're doing client work and you got this little space and time, provided you're not coming off of something that's huge and was time consuming, where you may need to shut down for a minute because your brain was so preoccupied with that thing that you were just working on, and you want to die, go into something else, divert into something else for the moment just to have some downtime. But yeah, working on your son's music is cool. What type of music is it, if you don't mind sharing? Rap. Okay. Cool. 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 Excellent. 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 Yep. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Keeping occupied is a very important circumstance. I believe that I don't believe in squandering time. Even if you go through this moment where you hip hop. Okay, cool. Where you're, like I said, where you're busy and then you're not busy. During your not busy times, I believe those are times when you should really, really sharpen and hone your skill. I was the guy who emailed you about the Tascam 32. Oh, okay, okay, all right, good stuff. All right, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, man. Yeah, I was glad to get that question. It was a throwback. You know, um, we'll talk about that in a minute, but getting back to downtime, I've always been of the thought that even when you're not so busy, you should be finding ways of sharpening your game. I had, because I teach on occasion, I had a student recently, well, not recently, but months ago, just randomly reach out and ask me, like, okay, well, why should I, or why should one practice every day? And I responded by saying that somewhere in the world, there's somebody with the same instrument that's practicing, that's vying for the same gig that you're going for. So, with that in mind, one must keep oneself occupied, sharpening one's skills. I mean, that's essentially what I believe. And it's good to see that one is keeping, again, oneself occupied when you feel like maybe that, okay, I have nothing to do right now. There's always something, as far as I'm concerned, there's always something to do. Like last week for me is okay, well, I'm not doing this thing right now. What can I fill in the space with? So for me last week it was okay, although I had the cancellations, I had mentioned to you guys I was doing some audiovisual work in conjunction, and some visual video post production with the same people. And the organization, of, again, which I can't disclose of, um reached out and said, okay, because it's involving children, we have to pull back for the minute because we didn't want to jeopardize both the parents and the kids, and that's understandable. you know um the only thing about me is that the contracts were going out this week, where I was going to get the first third, and I didn't even get to the Friday before the Thursday cancellation came, so I didn't even have a chance to send the contract out. Those things happen, but I guess, and once this thing lifts after a couple of weeks, it'll be back on. So what I'm still doing in the meantime, in between time, is preparing for that date, and which the whole week was pretty much occupied with talking to AV people, we're talking to the set designers, and lighting people, and all this other stuff that I was, reaching out. People I were reaching out to. Star Studios, hello, brother. Hey, how are you, man? I'm glad that you tuned in. John and I were just having a one-on-one with regards to keeping busy during these times. But glad you tuned in. So John, just really quick, getting back to the Tascam 32, and I think your question was to the along the lines of, is it beneficial to get a analog tape machine at this point in time? If you know how to maintain an analog machine, yes, but they are very, very, very expensive to keep going. The heads wear out. The cards, you got to know how to bias an EQ. If you get an Atari machine or a Studer machine, you have to know how to tweak, and you need certain tapes to bias the machine properly. You have to know you have to get a demagnetizer to demagnetize the heads. It's a whole lot of moving parts with tape machines. So if you find one, and you just want to keep it for nostalgic purposes, then yeah, you grab a hold of one. You could always run audio through it, and maybe the electronics of the machine will give you a certain mojo, if you will. But in terms of operating one, it can get costly, man. So let the buyer beware, as they say. But I mean, if that's something, I did see that video that you were talking about where the comparisons between the two. Yeah, I mean, you're not dealing with zeros and ones with digital, and in analog you're dealing with voltages, and you're gonna get something back from tape that you're not getting back from digital, and that to me has always been the phantom that one is chasing. If you've come back in time, we have 5 people. Chime in the comments and say what's up. I like to know what's happening in your world. So Star Studios, I don't have your name other than Star Studios, so forgive me for addressing you as such. Glad to see that you guys tuned in. We're going to talk briefly again about the bus comp, because I got a litany of questions, and I don't think folks are and I'm not, this is no indictment on anyone, if you will, but I do think that there is a disconnect with how to use the bus comp in practice, and why one should use a limiter in practice. I think it's important that you understand that with this bus comp, that it's more of a tool than it is an actual like an 1176, which is going to give you a certain character if you do the all buttons in type thing. You know what I mean? And I think people are approaching the usage of this particular item with that thought in mind. And again, it's no indictment on anyone, so I hope anyone who, if the people who sent me these messages, inquiring about the unit, don't take what I'm about to say wrong, but someone made a comment to with regards to the EQing of the example. Okay. Whenever you go, okay, let's take it from the perspective of a mastering engineer. Okay. Whenever you go to a mastering engineer, they're going to listen initially to what the master sounds like. So let's just go back to when tape was used. Walk in, 2-track tape goes on the machine. He listens to it. Okay. And if they were mastering for CD, it has to be digitized. So let's take 10 giant steps back. It's going to be digitized. You're going to take the analog tape, you're going to digitize it and bring it into the computer and do whatever things you had to do with the transfer console, whether it's EQ, compression, et cetera, et cetera. Then you're going to send the digital back out analog into a tape that, or well, back in the day, they used a Sony PCM 1630. I think it was this huge tape. I'll post a picture of one in the community so you guys can see. But along with that tape, that's what was sent off to the manufacturer. So if you were going out for CD manufacturing, you had to go through these varying steps. Now, fast forward to right now, where we're doing everything in the box. Okay, Some people want to come out of the box using the bus comp as a IO. Okay, it's more for the purpose of controlling the dynamics of what's going out for your 2-track master. Keeping in mind the current methods of distribution for music is Spotify, iTunes, and God only knows whomever else. What one must keep in mind, if you're going to use this unit as such, it is more of a tool than not. This tool needs to be used in conjunction with like the TC Electronic metering, because you're mastering for iTunes, again, which has a certain specification that you must follow as a mastering engineer. You can't just arbitrarily just throw zeros and ones out to Apple and expect your master to sound exactly like you had it in Pro Tools. There are guidelines that you must follow, because now everybody is mastering in the box. So the usage of the bus comp is more of a tool to achieve a particular purpose for a goal, which is being determined by iTunes, by Spotify. That's it in a nutshell. To want to hear the transformers in this thing, you're taking its usage way out of context. Way out of context. I'm not saying that you can't use it for that purpose. What I am saying is it is more of a tool. However, if you set up an IO in Pro Tools and you have this elaborate system where maybe things are in a patch bay and you can get to the unit quickly to use it for that purpose, fine. If you want to throw some drums through it and crush the drums like crazy, fine. You could do that. But bring those tracks back in to Pro Tools and then reuse the unit again as a mastering tool. But to assume that this unit is going to give you a certain sound, I think is to approach it from an improper perspective. If that is your overarching goal, to look at it from a sound standpoint, then I think you should look somewhere like to a tube tech, because tubes are going to give you a whole heck of a lot more character than a transformer will. Just because they're tubes, that's just the characteristic of a tube. You drive it hard, you're going to get second and third order harmonics. Now you got to understand what I'm saying when I'm saying second, third order harmonics. I'll give you an example. If you've ever gone to a symphony and you hear the orchestra tuning, they're tuning to a concert pitch, A, 440 hertz. You double 440 hertz is 880 hertz. That is your first order of harmonic. 880 doubled is going to be your second order. So if you're on a guitar and you're hitting a particular note, that note is vibrating at a particular frequency, which is going to give you first, second, third, fourth, fifth order harmonics. So tubes naturally give you this color that most people favor. If you play guitar and you have a tube amp, it's going to give you a character that a solid state amp is not going to give you. Or in the case of the bus comp, the transformers. I don't know how hard you have to hit the transformer before the transformer gives you the character you're looking for. So if you go to the store with the thought in mind, or order the bus comp with the thought in mind that this is going to give me what I'm looking for in terms of character, I think you should look elsewhere. For that reason, that's not negating the fact that the unit is useful. What I'm saying, if you're approaching it from the perspective of, I want this characteristic from this unit, Look somewhere else. You'd be better off getting two WA-76s, linking them and using them in a stereo fashion than relying on this to give you the mojo that you're looking for. Why? Because of the character of an 1176 in certain settings, you know. So when you're purchasing equipment, everything you purchase is a tool for a purpose. I've said this in a previous video. Everyone wants to get hung up on, okay, Warm Audio, Heritage, and all these guys are making good stuff. Warm, Heritage, all of them are making very good stuff. Why? Because it's based on a little simple schematic. Like I said, tubes are tubes, resistors, resistors, diodes are diodes, etc., etc. It's the quality of what you're putting into the unit. Okay, so keeping those things in mind, the playing field by and large has been leveled in terms of the quality of componentry coming out of so many manufacturers. Okay, so it's a matter of taste at this point. It's a matter of taste. If something doesn't meet your expectation when you purchase it, you take it back. Period. You know, and I don't know any other way to say that. But some of the messages that I get are so I'm not complaining, but nitpicky in terms of, oh, well, the way it was EQ'd and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. I'm coming from the perspective of having sat in several mastering studios and watched these guys work, you know, and having heard the saturation of a tube tech compressor, you know, and know that these tubes saturate easily and they're going to give you a character that maybe if you're a group like Paramore who likes that hard driven guitar sound, you might like, you know. So everyone's mileage may vary when it comes to the bus comp, you know, but know that this thing is clean. It may give you some character. It's not going to be the end all be all in terms of, wow, this is the sound I was looking for. If that is the perspective that you are approaching it from, I would really suggest that you buy from someone who is going to give you a 30-day return policy. It's your money, man. It's your money, period. And if it's not meeting your expectations, send it back. I don't know no other way to say it. But the playing field has truly been leveled in terms of quality. So let's get to a question. Any good mics you recommend for around $300? Yes. Let me give you a little sleeper. I don't have any. My mics are all in the locker. $300 will get you two AKG C3000 black faces. I don't know why everybody's leaving these things on eBay. I really don't. They used to call them, when they were first introduced, the poor man's 414. These things sound phenomenal. And they're cheap. They're great mics. You get a hypercardioid and a cardioid pattern. You get a bottom end roll off. You know what I mean? You get a negative 10 dB pad in the thing. And they go going for like $150 on eBay. I'm telling you, every time I see one that's like reasonably priced, I got like 3 of these things, man. Because I know they were made in Austria and they were all, when they first released it, I'll never forget. This is over 20, 30 years ago, just about. I was a kid at the time. I was a youngster. At an AES, and yeah, they were touting them as a poor man's 414. And I wanted one so bad, but I couldn't afford it. I mean, even at the time, I think it was about maybe $300. I couldn't even afford it then. But now people are leaving these things on eBay for no money. No money. I'm like, what? Every time I see one that's reasonably priced, I'm telling you, I buy it. I buy it just to have it. And they sound great. I did a video comparing the Lewitt, the 414, and that C3000B. 3000, not 3000B. I think not the silver one, the black one. Those are the bomb diggity, man. So if you can grab one of those, I would grab it. Other than that, the Lewitt LCT 440. If you want something new, the Lewitt mic is pre-EQ'd. That mic is killing. If you want to use it on varying sources, I've used it on vocal, most recently on tenor sax to mic the top of the tenor, and that thing is killing, man. That's a good mic. Lewitt is making some serious microphones. Got Cottonmouth. So the LCT 440, even the 240 is, it has that pre-EQ curve, So I'm definitely look into the Lewitt. Some more questions. What are your thoughts on the Behringer wing for studio use? I don't know. It depends. It depends. It looks good, but tell me what type of music you're doing, and maybe I could inform you a tad bit better, because if you look at most of the masters, I'm talking about guys like Andrew Sheps, um, Tony Maserati, Chris Lord-Alge. These guys are still on consoles, man. They're still on analog consoles. I mean, they pushing plugins like crazy, man, but they are on, and they mix records on console. So, I mean, you got to take your cue from these guys based on the music that you like and that you do. If you want that sound particularly, sometimes, and this is the biggest, I mean, I don't want to get off on a Digi rant, but this is the biggest beef I have with Digi. They keep coming out with new stuff that 4 years from now, after you done charge me 15 grand for something, it's useless. If in the resale market, I'm talking about, not useless in terms of use, because I am on HD8, by the way, okay? Because I paid $14,000+ to Digi for this system. It works. So my thinking is like this. If this were 24 tracks of tape, 2-inch, Otari and Studer were the two manufacturers of the day. Because they came out with a new machine was no reason to upgrade. Studios maintain what they have. Customers weren't asking, what type of studio, what type of recorder you had. Because they know if we're changing from session to session, you just have to bias the machine, you have to EQ it for the session that's coming in. But Digi keeps coming out with new stuff, and all the people who paid $9,000 or more for that controller that they had out a couple of years ago that replaced the C24, right? All the people who paid a boatload of money for that controller, now you could get it for $1,500 on Revert. That's a sin and a disgrace, man. You done snatched up 10 grand out my pocket and then turn around, and if I want to upgrade, I'm getting $1,500 for it. It's not fair. It's not fair, man. And these manufacturers got folks strung out, young kids strung out on plugins, strung out on the latest great. I mean, it becomes painfully apparent that these are not professionals, because the client ain't asking you, do you have the latest version of Pro? No. Nope. They have a certain spec. I want my deliverables at a spec of 96K, okay, 24-bit. That's the spec. 9624. So to go out and give Digi thousands of dollars for a subscription is ludicrous. Ludicrous. Meanwhile, Logic is killing. It can do everything Pro Tools can. If I was starting out today, I'd have me a laptop, Logic Pro, and a very good conversion, period, with some good preamps, because the playing field has been leveled. Digi knows they got a stranglehold on the industry, Avid rather, you know. Meanwhile, the standard is not changing. 24-bit 96K, 24 and 192. The standard hasn't changed. They keep changing and introducing little features, if you will, when they know in the R&D department months ago, y'all could have afforded this particular feature, but no, we're going to charge you as an upgrade. That's robbery. That's robbery. Period. Point blank. In the story, ran over. So I done gave them people a whole lot of twice, man, twice. But at the time I was working a lot. I could afford to write the check. It was no big thing. But now to want to surrender this system to get something 15 grand again, what? Just to get the, do you all know how often I use just the stock standard Digi plugins? Almost all the time. Almost all the time. Because they work. Period. So for all the plugin junkies out there, it's like you mainline in plugins, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. If that's your thing, that's your thing. I have a friend of mine. That's his thing. A long laundry list of plugins, thousands of dollars of plugins. That's crazy. Crazy. Because at the end of the day, the client don't care. They want to know that they got clear sound. They want to know that they got quality sound. And that is determined by your front end, because garbage in is garbage out. I don't care whether you're recording in Logic, Cubase, Pro Tools, or whatever. If your front end is not up for the task, then it's going to show. I don't care what you're going to do. That's your conversion, your digital to analog conversion. If you're on a native type system like Logic, and your preamps. So I would put money there before I go and give Digi another $13,000. You crazy, man? Please. Nope. Rant over. Anyway, back to some questions. John said, Jabber in the Benz. Jabber in the Benz. That's a guy, I like that name. He says, I agree. Hey, man, you can't keep giving these people money. You kidding me? Their money don't grow on trees. That's for sure. My mother used to say. Anyway, I love my warm audio bus compressor. Yeah, man, it's killing, man. It's killing. There ain't no doubt about that. It's killing. If you use it properly, like I said in the beginning, keeping the right perspective of its intended use in mind, it's going to serve you well. It's going to serve you well. Can't resell a plugin like you can. Yeah, right. You can. And you make me cuss on a Sunday. But you barely can sell the hardware. That's the thing. Okay, we need to get off this Digi rant, man, because I'm telling you, man, they trying to, man, they know what they're doing. These people, they're smart people. They're not dumb. They spend a lot of time in marketing, how we're gonna market, who we're gonna get to market. And somebody said, funny thing, and then we're gonna end this little story about Chris Lord Alge was shown with the heritage monitoring station thing. It's like, yeah, you could do this. You could go on YouTube and look at it, right? And somebody said, man, you up here demonstrating this control station and you don't even use it because you got a console. Boom. Mic drop. True. He ain't even using it. That's crazy. I don't know, but he promoting it. Why? Because somebody wrote the check and said, can you please endorse this? And he said, yes, I can, for X amount of thousands of dollars. Because they know his name carries some weight. That's not saying that the unit is bad, but it's saying how these marketing people think when they want your dollar. And I said to somebody recently, one of my sisters, I was like, when you buy, you got to buy for the long term. You got to buy for the long term. I remember being in Unique Recording Studio and always seeing this unit. This thing is 30. This is a DBX 163 compressor. It's like 36, 37 years old. Okay? But it's something that I always remember seeing. So yeah, I mean, you got to buy for the long term. You don't buy because it has to serve your needs, man. Your dollar that you are spending as a professional in this business has to serve your needs more so than the needs of the client, unless the client particularly asks for it. If the client asks for it and you have a means to acquire it, then that's a different story. But arbitrarily going out and buying stuff that is not serving you well is, to me, a waste of money. This system has paid for itself multiple times over. But imagine, if you will, if I kept giving them upgrade money, you get the money in and it goes out to, did you get more client money in? It goes out to, did you get more client? The upgrades from 8 to, I think they're Pro Tools, whatever they're up to now. I have a way to get stuff to a client if they are working on Logic or whatever their platform is, or the current version of Pro Tools. I know how to get it out, out of 8. Or if you want to just export it a particular way, it can be done, because the standard hasn't changed. Now, the standard changes from 24-bit to whatever, or to whatever, then it's a different story. Then you are forced to upgrade to maintain step with whatever the audio industry standard is for the moment. But beyond that, arbitrarily, no. They know how to extract the dollar. Yes, they do. I mean, I don't fault them. Listen, I mean, you go in business to make money. You know what I mean? But to keep, like when I went to the AES last year, they have this grand sprawling display, if you will. And the stuff is like, like a Christmas tree lit up. Of course it's enticing. It draws you in. You know what I mean? And they know that. So yeah, man, I just can't keep giving them money. That's the thing. Are you still thinking about buying the DA3000? Yes, I am. I have not changed that for multiple reasons. Again, coming out of Pro Tools into a quality set of converters at 192 kilohertz, if you are going to master for iTunes, is going to help you down the line. It's going to help. Because you're not going to lose any resolution, because they have to do their processing on their end. So you just want to ensure that, listen, if the client's work is coming out, even if you recorded it at 24 or 1644.1, 16-bit 44.1, right? Regardless, what's coming out, going into that machine, is coming out analog, going in analog, being redigitized at 192 kilohertz resolution. So you're not losing any quality if they do whatever they do to it. And it's just like lossless conversion that happens with an not lossless, MP3s, you suffer a loss in quality. So it's really no different, when you think about it. You just want to maintain quality throughout every step of the chain. That is important. That is of utmost importance, especially if you're doing client work. And you know that this thing is going to wind up on iTunes, then you have to do your due diligence and make sure that you're maintaining that, every step of the way in the chain. So yeah, definitely still giving that DA3000 a good look. I listened to a shootout between the Art 2 mic pre and a high-end mic preamp, and the Art held up to the competition. It's about the skills of the engineer to a degree. And it depends on what you're recording as well. I don't know what was, you have to say in the comments what was used to the shootout, because guitars are going to give you a different character. Excuse me. than a vocal in an R2 mic preamp. Even a bass is gonna, if you're running, like we were talking about first, second, and third order harmonics, it's a tube. It's a 12AX7 tube. So that's going to give you a certain harmonic character that might be pleasing for the instrument that you're recording. You know what I mean? Certain instruments, like a guitar, carry certain measure of harmonics that a voice doesn't, or a trumpet might not. So your mileage may vary. It depends on what you want from that thing that you're recording. So it's a lot of things that come into play here. The microphone being used at the moment. You know what I mean? What type of mic was used? That plays into the quality of whatever it was you were listening to. So it may depend on the skills of the engineer, but the equipment, plays a major part as well. So you have to tell me what was being recorded, and then maybe that's somewhat plausible. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, it has a tube in it, and it's going to offer you a certain harmonic character that maybe a solid state preamp might not. You know what I mean? Or a preamp that has a front end of Carnhill, or a front end of the Danish people, Lundhall transformers and Carnhills. Everything's, you have to pretty much record the same set of instruments and voices through all of the units, and then make a determination, because if it may be up to the person. Maybe that's the sound you like, and in the end, you know what, it gets down to the song, man. Because if the song sounds like doo-doo and it makes no sense, then doo-doo in is going to be doo-doo out. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it other than that. I mean, crap is crap. You could take, God rest his soul, Prince. You could put Prince on a 2-track cheapy cassette, and he's going to sound like Prince. Art Blakey said, if you know who Art Blakey is, a great, rest in peace, drummer, jazz drummer. He said, you should be able to sit behind any kit and sound like yourself. EADGBE is the same EADGBE on any 6-string guitar. How you approach the instrument determines, your character. How you touch the instrument, how what you bring out of the instrument. It doesn't make a difference. The preamps can make a difference technically, but it doesn't make a difference in terms of the quality of the material being produced. So just that as a side. Good point. Do you recommend having many different mic pre's? Yes, I do. I do, for this reason. If you're a person that if you're a person that's running somewhat of a commercial operation, or let's just say if you cater to hip hop, guitar driven, hard guitar driven music, classical on any given day, every one preamp, it can't service all those people. Because I'll give you an example. I had to record a double bass with a bow. To me, the knee seemed too big and strong, and gave me a whole lot of unnecessary girth for the music. This is classical music. I mean, why does it sound like we got this gargantuan sound for classical? So what I did, I reached for the Focusrite, which has a Lundhall transformer input, but no transformer out, which is going to yield a much cleaner sound. A Millennia for classical music is going to give you a much cleaner sound. you know, because it's about the purity. Because a cellist or a violinist or a viola or a person that's playing a stringed instrument is going to yield a different type of character based on how they touch the instrument. So if when they, you know, get aggressive with it, suddenly they saturate a Neve Carnhill transformer, that might not be pleasing to the player because it's not 100% honest and true. You know, whereas on the other hand, if this were, you know, some hard driven guitars, maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want an Neve, you know, so to have more than one type of preamp at your disposal, if you can, good ones, um, is a thing to do. Let me give you all a suggestion on good alternatives for someone just starting out. Like if you were trying to put together a good 500 series rack, I would get a decent Neve or Neve clone either by Ventec or Heritage, because they're the only two that are making them for 500 series. If you are a person putting together your first 500 series rack, I would get a decent Neve clone by Heritage, because an actual AMS Neve is going to be like a grand. So a good alternative at the high end is going to be the Heritage as an alternative to the AMS Neve, or at the low end, Ventec. Those are good Neve alternatives. I would get a good API 512C alternative like this, which is a Friedenstein artistic mic pre. It has all of the characteristics, of a 512. Again, people sleep on these small companies. Let me show you something. A socket-driven op amp. Whereas, oh, I want the real API sound. What do? Boop, pop that out and put a 2520 op amp in it, and guess what you got? You have an API. The design of it is the same. Single knob, 60 dB of headroom, of amplification rather, and it has a nice transformer on it. So it's a cheap alternative to an actual 512C, which is going to cost you about maybe $700-800 or $700 in the used market. So you may ask, why is this sitting in the box? Because I don't have a more than one rack, and I'm not using it right now, and my Neve has come home, so it needed to be placed back in its rightful place. But those are good alternatives. So if you're putting together your first colorful rack, then yeah, those are viable alternatives. Another question. Yeah, you need API Neve and a nice transformerless Millennia type of preamp. Something that doesn't have transformers in or out. Okay, just to offer that as an option and another color, you know, for a client that might ask. Question, Mike, please. Do you think, Glenn Marion asks, do you think mic preamps with transformers give the sound more weight? I've heard some say that it does. Yes. Depends on the transformer though, because some transformers, the way they wind them, you know, the transformers have step up values in terms of like amplification, you know, so it depends on, you got to know the character of the transformer. Cinemag, you know, it requires a little nerdy research on one's part to know what Cinemag sounds like, to know what Jensen transformers sound like, Carnhills, Lundhalls, all these different companies, you know. And if you could get a hold of it, if a friend of yours has one and you got an Neve and he has, you know, you swap around and you let your ears be the judge. But all of these transformers have a different sound. And the sound has to line up with what your overarching goal is in terms of your music. You know, if you're doing a lot of Like I said, classical, you're not going to need something that's going to give you a lot of unnecessary girth, which a Neve does. That's something you want to avoid in a case like this. So if you could experiment around, like I said, buy from a company that gives you a 30-day return policy. And I think it's Sound Pure. They have a try before you buy program. That's even better. They'll send it out. You like it, you keep it. You don't like it, send it back. But you have to know what phantom you're chasing in your mind and in your ear. And you'll know, like, that's it. No, not exactly. And if you get a chance and there's a local studio in your area that is a Neve room, or it is it's a API room, pay a visit, book a session, and cut some guitars, cut some vocals, and you'll have a true sound representation of what it is that you're looking for based on the console technology. So I would do that as an option as well. Do you think this is Jabber in the bins? Do you think that SSL will have the same sound quality, not that a Chinese company acquired them? Yeah, listen. Okay. Let's just have this little discussion real quick. Understand this. Everything to some degree is made in China. Period. Full stop. Okay? So it has nothing to do with the Chinese. It has everything to do with the sourcing of the parts going inside what you are manufacturing. I don't care who builds it. If it was a bunch of, Martians that came down from Mars and started building it, as long as it turns out the way you actually designed it, that's all that matters. As long as you sourced the parts that went inside of it properly and didn't buy from the cheap manufacturer down the block, you'll be okay. I don't care who's putting it together. That's where folks get it all twisted. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying people that I get hate mail about, oh, you're a warm audio fanboy. No, just somebody has been around the block a few times and I open stuff up and look inside. And if you got quality components, I used the macaroni and cheese analogy not too long ago. Black people during Thanksgiving like mac and cheese. You cannot put out mac and cheese that got water running in the middle, looking like you didn't cook it properly. Because somebody gonna take their fork, discriminating folk, and be like, no, thank you. Put that back. But you know how mama made her mac and cheese. And you measure everybody the way mama made it because mama put this, and this in it. So when you open stuff up and you look inside and it's like, no, not exactly. You know the parts that go in. So when people keep getting it all twisted, it's like, oh, you a warm audio fanboy. No, I take stuff apart. I look inside. If it got cheap crap in it, it's cheap. I did a live recording. And here's a good example. Excellent example. With this group, I happen to have the thing laying around. You can't see it. The Cantors of St. Joseph. A vocal group, they wanted to do a live recording. Somebody said, hey, I got these new preamps. You want to try them out? The Golden Age. I was like, okay, I'll give everybody a shot now. Hey, listen to this. I did not have a chance to look inside. Lo and behold, I'm on the gig. One of them craps out. That's a nightmare. You're in the middle recording something, and then one of them craps out. This is a client. Thank God I had my trusty API contingency, but this is a case in point. So I get it home, and I'm like, Never using this thing again. I open it up, and the stuff that's inside of it, it's like, okay, I know you based this all off a schematic, but could you have at least put better components on the inside? The components was terrible. Cheap components, cheap resistors, cheap capacitors. And if you know anything about a capacitor, you know you need that power. A capacitor is a battery. It needs to hold its charge. So imagine, if you will, putting cheap stuff inside, something that needs to hold a charge, and you need that power on demand, and the capacitors that you got in this stuff is not up for the job. Imagine that. So naturally, it crapped out on me. For that reason, it was junk components on the inside. So when I'm being called names like woman, it doesn't bother me. It's like, oh yeah, I laugh it off, because I know that if they would just open it and look at the quality of the component, the man took and he sourced all the components in it. I don't care who's assembling it. I don't care what language they speak. I don't care what planet they are from. If they are building it to your specification, they're building it to your specification. Now, to answer your question, yeah, my man laughing. You know the deal, bro. Anyway, to answer your question about it, right? Solid state logic, this is what they did. They know, okay, well, hey, wait a minute. We source it. Now, they're all following the same manufacturing guidelines. If we buy all the parts in bulk, when you buy stuff in bulk, it's just like going to BJ's or going to Costco. Is it going to be cheap for you to buy in bulk? Absolutely. The manufacturers, they do the same thing. They buy tens of thousands of capacitors, quality ones, tens of thousands resistors, tens of thousands of everything they need. Do you think they just box all this stuff, ship it off to China and say, build it and get back in touch with me? Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. They got somebody in research and development, marketing, QC. They are going to China to stand over you to make sure that the job is done correctly. Why? Solid State Logic's name is on the line. You do the same thing. You know you wanted to be there to see who made this mac and cheese. Why is it wet in the middle? Ew. You know the deal. You wanted to be there to see who made this stuff, because you know you're not going to eat it. It has to be made to a certain way. What your QC was mama's mac and cheese. That's quality control. Mama made it this way. It must be made that way. I don't care if I'm going to Pookie and them house down the block, Aunt Sue, Uncle Jerry. I don't care where I'm going. It got to be made to mama's spec. So when Solid State Logic sends it off to China, they got a litany of people going to China to stand over them to make sure that they manufacturing this to a particular specification. So call me a fanboy. I'm telling you, Warm Audio is doing the same thing. You don't listen. Don't fool yourself. You buy this bus compressor, I guarantee you, when 20 years from now, you hold on to it, it's going to have a character, and suddenly in the market, just like these Neve preamps from back in the day that you used to get for next to nothing, it's going to have a character that everyone lusts over. You're going to have one in your rack for sale for $10,000 because that's going to be the current bid, because they don't make these things no more. So, I mean, everyone's mileage may vary. That's my take on it. But Solid State Logic, regardless of where it's manufactured, whether it's in the UK or whether it's in China, they got a QC team that is overseeing the manufacturing process because their name is on the line. My man laughing. Everybody laughing about you. I know the deal about that mac and cheese situation, man. I'm telling you, I don't be eating everybody's food. I'm telling you, I don't. If it don't look right, sorry. Anyway, next question. What microphone do you use the most in your studio? If I could, I would use all the time, for sentimental reasons, my first mic, that I purchased. I saved up my pennies when I was a kid, and I got my first real legit mic, which was a AKG C414 BULS. If I could use that all the time, that would be the first one I reach for. But because certain voices require a certain timbre or character from a mic, I have to reach for all the other ones I have. If I could use my second one would probably be my ribbon mic because of the character of a ribbon and the way it takes EQ. That would be my 1 and 2. Okay. Um, but the most lately, what I've been using a lot is that Lewitt because of the pre-EQ curve that it has. That Lewitt is no joke. If you could grab one of those, the 240 or the 440s LCT Pure, grab one. Grab them. You know, those are the current, you know, you know, really good microphones that are out in the market. So I would get a hold of one of those. What's your preferred way to saturate a track? If I was doing a lot, which I don't, but I have in the past, if I was doing a lot of hard guitar driven music, it would definitely, I would definitely have in my arsenal a tube tech. I definitely would have one. They're god awful expensive, but if you know you want that character in that sound, can't beat that tube tech, man. That CL, that you know, that's I think it's the CL series of compressors that they have because it just has a sound, you know, and from a preamplification standpoint, it would have to be something on the Neve end just to give you that color, and that saturation. If that's what you're looking for, then you got to use those in tandem because I mean that's what a lot of pros do. You know, if they want that color coming right out of the box, it would definitely have to be that tube tech and the Neve. That's a pair that you know most reach for. On the other side of that would be the Avalon, the 737. I had a 747. I think once upon a time I sold it. The 737 vacuum tube, preamp is a very nice one, and a lot of their tube driven stuff by Avalon is really, 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 you know, it has a character to it. You know, so definitely those, you know, if you want that saturation, you know, that's what you want, then it has to be something with tubes in it. I jump back. Okay, I answered that question. We had a couple of laugh out louds. And what would you recommend the Warm Audio Tone Beast 12 to use for a variety of preamp sets? Yeah, I would for this reason. They give you a lot of options right out of the box. I think you have a choice of nickel or another type of color of transformer. I don't know how that's achieved, whether they have two different transformer windings in the box. I have never opened it. I would have to open it and see how they achieve that. Or, but out of the box, the Tone Beast it can be, I would imagine, a flexible unit to use for most circumstances. So, to answer your question, would I recommend the Tone Beast to use for a variety of preamp sounds? If you're on a budget, yes. You know, and again, if it doesn't meet your expectation, you know what to do with it. Give it a 30-day window. Goes back. It's that simple. You know, part of the challenge, and I've been there as well. Part of the challenge, I think, when you're coming along is knowing what you want to hear and trust your ears and trust your gut, man. I mean, that's the only thing I could tell you. You know when you hear that sound. You know, you will know it. You'll know it. That's it. What is that? And that's the thing you will buy. You know, you will know what that sound is. You know, so don't it was like when I was buying my get back to my AKG. I knew I wanted that mic, and I kept trying to convince myself that every other mic could give me that sound. And I knew that wasn't true, you know. So what did I do? I waited and I saved and I worked my behind off. And it was a lot spending $1,100 for that mic at the time. I mean, that mic that I have right now is like 36 years old. It's an old microphone, but every time I reach for it, when I was doing something with Melody Ray a year ago, look her up. Look her up. She's with Lakeisha Benjamin. She's a background singer. She's, one of the best in New York. And I was my first time working with her. And I was like, I've never heard this girl's voice before. I know she can sing. I know but I've never recorded her. What do you reach for? I reach for the old tried and true. Why did I reach for that microphone? The number one reason, the response curve is flat as a ruler. So you could always add EQ to bring out the character and the timbre of the voice. But when in doubt, I knew that line was flat as a board. And I knew I could count on the quality of that mic. So that's what I reached for. Getting in line with that other statement, what microphone I use the most, it would be like that one, that 414. George Thompson says, I was thinking about the Tone Beast. And he followed up with,